it's Chloe. Welcome back to my channel. It's been a while since I last uploaded, but today I'm going to be doing the long anticipated textbook review for An Integrated Approach to Intermediate Japanese. So if you follow me on Instagram, you'll know that this is the main textbook I've been following recently. I have finished it as of recording. I want to say, like, from the start, overall, I do really like this book. I think this is a really good textbook to work through. So without further ado, let's get right into the review. So if we start at the beginning of the chapter, so every chapter starts with a culture notes section, which is relevant to the dialogues and the reading passages for that chapter, which I think is really good. It gives you some context. And there is an audio CD, so there is audio for all the dialogues and the reading passages. Then it gets into the vocabulary for the chapter, so all the vocab that the lesson teaches you is from the dialogues. So all the grammar, all the vocab is based around the dialogues for that chapter, which I think is nice because you can see everything in context. You can see all the new words in the dialogue. You get a better idea of how it's used. And then there are kanji lists as well. I personally haven't really used the ones in the textbooks much, but they are there for reference, I guess, if you want to check that you know the readings for all of them. What I do like about these lists though is that it doesn't just give you like individual characters, it actually gives you the words, usually from the vocab list. So you're not just like memorizing lists of characters, you're learning the words and the readings for the words themselves. So the kanji list is split into kanji you should be able to read and kanji you should be able to write and like use yourself. So that's nice because you can focus on one or the other if you wanted to. And then we get into the grammar section, and I really like how the grammar is taught in these lessons. I think it's very kind of simple, it's straight to the point. It doesn't give you like loads and loads and loads of explanation. It kind of just tells you this is the grammar point, this is what it roughly means in English. Sometimes it will tell you kind of how to form it, but a lot of times it just gives you the example sentences so you kind of figure it out yourself. But I personally think that's really good because then you're not just relying on being given the information, you're kind of working it out and seeing how it's made rather than being told how it's made, if that makes any sense. But also in the grammar example sentences, they will use the vocabulary from like the lists for that chapter. So instead of just giving you like a list of vocab and being like there to learn that, it gives you a list of vocab and then it continues to use it throughout the chapter, which I think is a really good thing because you're constantly being like reintroduced to it, so it'll help you remember it better, I think. And then after the grammar points, there is another section that kind of points out key notes for certain grammar points, certain words that are used in the dialogues. So if there's like a certain rule or an exception, it will point it out in this section of the chapter. And then there are some like activities in the textbook, but personally I've just skipped all of them. A lot of it's pair work and like role play activities, and as someone who's self-studying, like I don't have anyone to do those activities with, so I just skip it. And then at the very end of the chapter there's usually another reading passage and some sort of listening activity. Again, I have skipped those, to be honest. So that's kind of it for the main structure of each chapter. So there's 15 chapters and every chapter is the same, it's the same format. In terms of content, it's kind of hard to say exactly the kind of level. I would say it's somewhere between like higher N4 and kind of takes you into N3 level. So I would say if you've like passed N4 and you're looking for something to kind of bridge the gap, I would say this is a good place to go. Overall, the layout is really clean, it's really easy to follow. I like the way that it's kind of like there's a set structure with like dialogues, readings, vocab, kanji, grammar. Like I like having that structure, it makes it a lot easier to kind of work through, I find personally. I will say sometimes the vocab feels a bit all over the place. In some of the chapters it would teach you words like older brother and sorry, and then in other chapters it would teach you like how to say World War II, and it kind of felt a bit all over the place. Like obviously it's tied together in the readings or whatever, but in terms of like standalone words it was a bit kind of like, huh? But overall I think it does give you kind of like a solid overall knowledge, if that makes sense. So in each chapter, I haven't done the exact maths, but about on average there's around 10 grammar points and about 100 words. So that is a lot of content that you're getting. How many pages is this book? 342 pages. It is quite thick, but I mean that's a lot to cover, that's a lot of content. So I think it's definitely worth investing in this one because it teaches you so much. Another thing I will say is that the chapters can feel quite long because there is so much content. I feel like, especially in the later chapters, there's like 3 long dialogues and then there's 2 like double page reading passages, so it does kind of start to get harder to work through. I feel like they could have maybe done 20 chapters rather than 15 and kind of broken it down a little bit more just to kind of make it a bit more manageable. For me, it wasn't that big a deal, but I know some people might find it hard to kind of keep going, like especially if you're stuck on a specific chapter for ages just because there's so much to get through. It can kind of feel like you're not making much progress. Also, in the back of the textbook they do have full lists for all the grammar, the kanji and the vocab that is taught throughout the textbook, which I think is nice kind of as a reference. Like if you're looking for something, you can flick to the back to find it easier, or you can go through and use it as a checklist to make sure that like you're confident with everything. So I think it's useful to have all that good stuff in the back. So I will talk about the workbook super quick. This is sold separately, and I would definitely recommend this if you're like a self-studier. If I find a page I haven't defaced. So it gives you practice questions for the grammar, and then in the back there's a whole load of kanji writing practice. So you might have seen on Instagram I did some reels of me writing in this book for the kanji. So here it does give you the kanji separately, but it does at the bottom tell you the words that it's from. So if you are self-studying and you're doing this on your own, I would definitely recommend getting the workbook for that extra practice, because unless you have a friend or a tutor or something to do the roleplay pair work with, you're not going to be getting the practice from the textbook itself. So I think the workbook is definitely worth having. And as well, just a point, you can like tear out the pages. It's got like perforated edges on the pages for the workbook, so you can tear them out if you wanted to. That's not something I've done, but it's an interesting feature, I think. So yeah, overall I would definitely recommend this if you're kind of like N4, N3 level. If you've like passed N3, I wouldn't bother with this one. I think most of the content is N3 level. I did see online somewhere, don't ask me where, I will never be able to find it again, someone said that like the first 9 chapters were N3 and then up to chapter 15 that was all N2, but I'm not sure about that. I feel like it's a good place to start N3 if you wanted to study towards N3 like later, because that's what I'm doing. I've used this first and then I'm going to focus more on like JLPT specific prep books and things, but because it's not following like the JLPT system, it's kind of hard to judge the level. But yeah, I think it's like a really solid textbook. I think it covers a lot of really useful content. It teaches you a lot of good grammar. Sometimes the vocab's a bit kind of scattered, but I think kind of overall it kind of gives you a solid knowledge of Japanese vocabulary. So yeah, I will leave the link to this, probably JP Books on Amazon if I can find it, so feel free to click down there and have a look at it yourself. I plan to do a lot more reviews. I've got a whole pile of books to review, so I will get to those eventually. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you've used this book yourself, let me know what you think in the comments, and I'll see you in the next video.